All right, so let's do something completely different. We are going to take a child's toy. This is a FisherPrice toy here, and we're going to turn it into an adult toy. That could be taken way out of context. We're going to turn it into something cool, something not childish. And what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into one of these. This is a metal slug. This is a Super Vehicle version 1 metal slug that somebody has painted. I didn't do all that. Looks pretty nice. And then we have this unpainted one. This is a version 2 one. And the main reason I'm doing this is because somebody asked me to, and they're paying me to. So the guy sent me 2 of these because he wants one of each version. He just sent me these so I could get an idea of what they're supposed to look like. And I am not familiar with the whole metal slug thing. So if I say something wrong or get the terminology wrong, you can leave a comment if you want, but yeah, whatever. I'm not too concerned about it. So the first thing when looking at this is to realize that the proportions are like all out of whack. You know, like the tracks here are longer and flatter than they are here. This is longer and shorter than it is here. Obviously, this has some goofy arms on it and a light that has to go, and no weapons in the back. It does have a little cannon shooty thing here, and there's some little wheels on the bottom, and that thing keeps falling off. And this also has sounds and lights. It fired that. I forgot to turn it on. And yeah, he does not want to keep the lights. However, you'll notice there's a light, like a spotlight up here. He does want that, and he does want that to work, so we will definitely do that here. And as I said, proportions are way off, so when you're trying to, turn something like this into something like this, you kind of got to just get the gist of it. Obviously, get rid of the goofy stuff, get rid of the toyish stuff, and make it look as much as possible more like this. So this will all get modified. All these details will be added to the top, the weapons added to the back. So let's stop talking and start doing. So the first thing is we're going to take this apart, and we'll take the batteries out first. And the little wheels on the bottom, I forget if I said this or not already, but those little wheels are going to go away because he's not going to be, rolling this around on the floor. Probably not. And I'm assuming there's just going to be a bunch of screws. Yeah, they go on this side. So we'll just take all the screws out. Okay, so one thing to point out, you notice there are screws on this side, but not this side, and that is because once you take those screws out and all of this comes off, well, there's 2 more screws under that you have to take out. Okay, so with all the screws out, we should be able to pull this apart. Just like that. And of course this we don't need. We can get rid of all the electronics, but the circuit board that's down here and the speaker and the switch, well, we don't need any of that. Actually, take that back. I will keep the battery box here, and I will keep the switch here to turn on the spotlight on top, but the circuit board and most of this wiring is just going to go away. So once that's loose, we then have some screws in here. And since, again, wiring is something we'll worry about later, I'm just going to cut those because, again, who cares? We'll worry about that later. And we have the little push button that releases the little missile thing, and the little spring and the catch. We're down in there. We'll hang on to that. And one thing we need to do is get rid of these. There were screws there. We'll get rid of these arms. Now the arms look like they're pinned in right here. So I think the only thing we need to do there is just pull those off. Just using, man, I was hoping they would come off easier than that. Hold on a sec. There might be a better way to take these off. There we go. Yeah, that was just a little barbed push pin that went in there. So yeah, we don't need any of that. You jab a screwdriver right into my hand. That would be YouTube gold right there. There we go. Well, that sucked. All right, we'll get rid of these for now. And I'm basically just going to toss to the side anything that I don't really need right at the moment. Parts that I will need later, I'll just kind of keep handy. A little cup here so I don't lose them. Okay, so this is what we're working with now. We have two sides, top, and two sets of wheels. By the way, once those just come out like that, those just come apart, and we can get rid of those little wheels. I'll fill that in a little bit later. So now this is what we have to work with. And there are a couple of different ways, a couple of different places we could start. And I think I'm going to start with the top right here. So we'll just get this stuff out of the way and focus on the lid. So let's take a look at the reference. All right, so there's our reference lid. And when we take a look at this one, you'll notice there's like a gap, like a window gap in there. And I looked at a lot of these online, you know, other than just these, and I didn't see any. I mean, there's several different like variations, but I don't remember seeing any with like a window gap. So I think that's the first step, is to get rid of that window gap. Also, those lights shouldn't be there, that shouldn't be there. Basically, what I want to do is just kind of get rid of all the stuff on the top there. And you could just sand it all off, or you could just kind of cut it all off. And the plan is to cover this top with a plain piece of styrene sheet, and it'll give me basically a clean white canvas, blank canvas to work from. So we'll cut the bulk of that off. Now when I glue styrene or ABS, I use, and I've said this 100 times before, I use this Plastistrat. This is for styrene and ABS. And some plastics does not work with. So whatever plastic you're working on, take a spot that doesn't matter. Just put a drop on it. Let it sit for a few seconds. And then see if you can leave a fingerprint. And this one I can tell already does not. Not even sticky. Did not affect it at all. Let's try this. Put a little drop on it. Let it sit for a second. And yeah, that gets sticky. I can leave a fingerprint in it. I can feel that it's sticking, trying to stick to my finger. So that's actually dissolving with the solvent. So these are two different kinds of plastics. So really the only option is to use CA, which it'll work, but it's not, I mean, it's probably the best option, but if you don't properly prep this, it could flake and peel off. So you got to be careful with that. Keep that in mind. But what I want to do is go and just sand all that down. I got some 80 grit paper on a piece of aluminum here, and you can just kind of go to town like that, and it'll take it down okay. Right, so I basically sand, now I used a razor to slice those off to make it a little bit quicker, but I use this sanding like this until it started contacting around here. I want the top of this to have a very, very slight compound curve. And so by sanding, and obviously this is higher, so by sanding until I saw it hitting around here, now I know there's a pretty good line all the way around to give me a nice curve there. Now for the CA to stick to this, it really needs to be scuffed up. So I'm going to scuff up the rest of it, and then it has to be completely clean of any oil or grease or fingerprints. And so I'm going to scuff up, this is 80 grit, so I'm going to scuff up anywhere the CA is going to contact. to help it stick. It gives it a little bit of tooth or a little bit of bite. Gives it something to. So I'll sand on that a little bit more. I'll get a piece of styrene cut, and then we'll glue that lid on. All right, so that is now thoroughly scuffed. The back of my styrene is also scuffed and cleaned. So we're just going to CA, and we're going to get quite a bit on there. Obviously, this is a kind of a compound curve, so it's going to be a little bit of a struggle getting that to all go around nicely. But that's what heat guns are for. So I'm just going to try and hold that on and then spray it with the accelerator. Get that to hold on the bottom there. I'm going to get a heat gun on that and try and get that to form around that curve. Right, I got a little bit in there, and you'll notice it's still oversized. That still needs to get sanded back. And what I'm going to do now is fill in all the way around here with CA, and after that cures, I'm then going to sand all that back down smooth and flush. You notice the little kink here? That's fine. That will get sanded out in a bit. I can also put more CA on those 3 areas there and then cure it, and that'll also help kind of lock that in a little bit. So let me do that, and we'll get back and show what it looks like here in just a minute. All right, so it's not exactly done yet, but that is pretty much, pretty much it. Got a nice, almost flat, just a very slight curve to it. That still will get filled more. It'll still get sanded smoother and filled in more, but that gives you an idea of what we're after. So this gives us a nice surface to add any details like the light and that thing, whatever that is, and a few other little random bits just to give it a little bit more, detail, I guess. So next thing we need to do is close up the window gap. So I'm going to start by adding strips of styrene around the inside lip like that. And the same thing, you got to scuff up the surface. So we have to scuff up that whole inside surface so the CA, has something to bite into. So let me get that kind of scuffed up here. I'll get a few strips of styrene glued in, and we'll just show you what that looks like here in a second. Okay, so I've got the lid installed. The halves are just kind of snapped together. There's no screws in it or anything. And as you can see, I put some styrene strips around here to fill in the gap, and I put a piece of styrene that I had marked out and kind of followed the profile of the rest of the body there. And it's just bonded onto the bottom here. That'll all get trimmed back a lot thinner when it's all done. So what I need to do now is fill in this gap along here to kind of fill that in like that, like so. And I could fill that in with a whole bunch more styrene, but that would take a while. So I'm going to fill that in with Bondo. And just like the CA up here, for the Bondo, this will have to be scoured, sanded, roughed a little bit, some 80 grit sandpaper would be good enough. And just mix up some Bondo, and I will spread that in and then sand it all smooth. So here's after the kind of first round of sanding and shaping. Again, I just sanded until I could see the white edge here, and it made contact with the rim here. You'll see right here I need to put some more filler here and some more filler here. Probably need some more filler around the edges around here. You can see I trimmed that back a little bit. So that needs sanded off. So the next step is to put a coat of primer on this, and then that'll really show up those areas where I know I need to put some spot glazing putty filler stuff. So let me get this all final shaped. I mean, you can see how it's going. And again, that might not look good. Once I get primered, I might not like that, so then I'll just kind of fill over it and I'll just continue that bead all the way around. But, you know, just trying to make it, I don't know, add some extra detail, I guess. But again, if I don't like it, I can always fix it. So yeah, I'll come back and show you what it looks like once it's all filled and primered and pretty much done, ready for more details and stuff. And while we're waiting for paint to dry, let's go ahead and cover those up. So I'm just going to take a piece of styrene that's bigger than what we need and go ahead and cut it like that. And I kind of boogered that up a little bit when I was getting the arms off, but yeah, no big deal. Clean that up a little bit, and we'll take our solvent now. When you look at the example here, you'll notice that there's a little bit of a kind of a curve in, kind of concaves in. The other one doesn't do that really. The other one, you know, it does a little bit, but not as much. So what I will more than likely do is, once that's cut and trimmed to shape, I'll put one more piece here and one more piece here, and then I can sand those edges down to blend, and that'll give kind of like a, you know, some higher edges here and a lower, and it'll kind of give that same type of shape there. So I'll need to spend a few more minutes working this, so I'll get back with you here in a little bit when that's all done. Also, something we'll need to do, we're going to cut these off right here, fill in the gaps, put a fresh piece, drill, and put some better looking pieces there. So that's coming up here in a few minutes. So let me get back with you when this is all kind of done and ready for the next step. All right, so here's that piece with the first round of primer and spot glaze filler. This is not a two-part mix, it's just right out of the tube. And it's dry to the touch, but it's not cured yet. I tried a little bit of sanding and it seemed kind of soft. But so while that's finishing drying, which doesn't take long, but while that's finishing drying, let's take a look at the sides. And so on our little model here, these sides here, and on the toy, they look like this. So we need to get rid of this, and we need to fill that in and make it go straight down and over, and a little bit of detail here, a few little things on top here. So to get rid of this stuff, we can just, you know, you got several options. You can just cut it off like this using cutters. You can sand it off, you can file it off, you can use a Dremel tool, cut it off, but we need to get rid of that. Also, this edge curves down, so once those are removed and you get sanded, we'll need to kind of fill that so it's flat, and that looks like this. So I just cut pieces of styrene. Basically what I did was I put that on a flat piece, and I just wedged pieces of styrene in there until it filled in. There's like 3 pieces of styrene. And then we can just kind of cut that off. We'll finish doing it later. Then we need to stack styrene here to kind of fill in that gap, and then we can take larger pieces of styrene and wrap it around and cut it to shape, and start putting that shape in it. On this one, it'll be fairly easy because there's just a simple detail, a line here and a couple little squares there, and it's straight across. On the other one is more curvy here and has some extra little detail, and I already got one of those sides done, and that's what this one looks like. So that's kind of the idea of what's going on here. Again, just gluing styrene on. This is actually about 3 or 4 layers of styrene, cutting the shape, putting on the details, and it's kind of, you know, how this build goes. You just cut off what isn't right and you just add what is right. whether it's just built up out of styrene sheet or 3D printed or whatever. In fact, I don't think I showed you this part yet. This part is pretty much done, where that's all sanded to shape, and I put those details here in. Because again, on this model, looking at those details, you can see how it's more curvy here, and they just have those circles with the lines in it. And so to replicate that, I basically just took a screw and I filed the head a little bit flatter, so you can kind of see the difference there. I just filed the head of that screw flat and put them on there to match. On the other version, it's a little bit different. They have more of a kind of a shape like that. And that was an Allen cap head bolt that I just drilled out and kind of filed a different shape into it. And those just go in there like that. So here's what that looks like with the details sanded off and removed. That area filled in. That was about 3 layers of styrene that got sanded, and so here you can kind of see how that curved down with that taper there. And this area here filled in with just scrap pieces of styrene and then sanded across so everything's nice and smooth. Next step is to cover that with a piece like this, so that will get bonded on here and then fold it around like that. What I like to do is bond this edge on first, make sure that's good and bonded, and in that way when I bend that around, it doesn't try to pull that back off. So we'll start here, and again, as I've said a couple of times, I think, I use solvent, PLA, ABS solvent, and I'll put quite a bit on each surface. And again, as I've said before, CA would work, but I have never had, that I remember, I have never had a solvent welded joint fail, but I have had some CA joints start to crack loose on me. So again, just me, I prefer the solvent bonding. So I'm going to use just a piece of aluminum here and a clamp to squeeze that on. The aluminum is just there to put equal pressure along that lip of the styrene. And once that's clamped, I'm going to go back in and just drip a little bit more styrene into the, not styrene, but solvent into the seam, just to make sure I got plenty going into that seam there. And again, I'm going to let that set for a while, and then I'll just bend that around and clamp it here, and then that will look like this. And I went ahead and cleaned up the edges, brought it to the final thickness, and I added a piece of styrene on the back side here to start building some thickness in. And you can kind of see there, that piece there, and another piece here. Now there will be another piece go on top, so these corners will be at least 3 layers thick. The edges back here again will be 2 or 3 layers thick, and of course you got the rest of the plastic body in here, kind of you know, giving you some strength there. So this one has been setting for quite a while, so I'm actually ready to put the second piece over top of that. But it's just like we talked about, clamp it on, let it set, curve it around, and then we'll go ahead and start putting the details in here. And so while this one is setting, let's take a look at these body pieces here. And one thing to notice, we've got these little pieces like actuators, and on the toy version, you notice they are kind of closed in here. I want to go ahead and cut those out. So I'm going to use a Dremel tool and a little reamer. I don't know if that's really a reamer or a burr, whatever you call that, but I'm going to use this. And we're just going to try to go in here. And I need a new blade on here. That one is getting dull. I'm going to cut out a little bit more like that once I get a better blade on there. And then we can use a jeweler's file to go in here and really clean up those edges. And also, we need to shape this so it's a little bit more rounded, because this is like a piston or an actuator or something. So we're just going to carve that out to make it look a little bit more rounded, get a little bit more shape to it. And again, same on the other side. But simply by cutting out that little opening, that little web, just makes it go from less toy-like to more non-toy-like, I guess. So you got the idea there. I'll keep working on that on both sides. Also, we need to cut this back part off. And for that, what we can do is put those pieces together, and using a Dremel tool, the cutoff wheel, or a hacksaw or a bandsaw, we're just going to slice that off. And once that's done, that will then look like that. All right. So again, with that cut off, and I might sand that back a little bit further. I still have not decided yet exactly how I want to fill that in, because if you look at the back side of those, yeah, I guess I need to make like a bulbous thing that covers that up, just to round off the back of that. I'll worry about that later, but again, that's something I can do there for now. So anyways, like I've said before, I'm just going to keep making and carving and shaping, and get back to you once I got a little bit more to show you. All right, here's where that is so far. So I've got 2 layers curved around, and I cut out some semi-arcs and glued those on to start getting the little curve profile. And all that messiness here is because the styrene I'm using was actually repurposed. It was a large, it was a cockpit poster, an airplane cockpit poster, probably 3 by 5 feet, maybe bigger than that. And my company was going to throw it away, and I took it. So that's given me a lot of nice styrene. However, it's got a lot of printing on one side, and the solvent just kind of dissolves that and streaks it. But that's okay, because that'll get sanded off and painted over, and nobody would ever know. So this is kind of the first step of that. Once this is sanded to kind of the curvy shape that I'm going for to match that, then this piece, I will connect the dots to make 2 slots, and that will get glued on there. And then another piece will get glued on over top of that, and all sanded smooth, and it'll look like that when it's done. So just kind of matching the curves of the model in this way, and the curve around the side there. I've got pretty much what it looks like. I had a few little goofs here, but those will get filled and sanded and primered over, and no one will ever know. That's pretty much that one done, minus a little bit of fill and paint. Now I might, well, I probably will. The wheel, I know they're probably not called wheel hubs on a tank, but you know, for lack of a better term, the wheel hub is different from this. So I will more than likely just cut that out and replicate that in here. That's just a simple piece of styrene with some bolt patterns on it. That shouldn't be any big deal at all. And so I still need to make those 2 little things that are sticking up here, and a little half a bowling ball thing looking down there. I don't know if that's like a motor launcher or whatever. You know, let me know in the comments what it is. I'm not a tank guy, if that wasn't obvious. So anyways, that's what those are looking like. And I think I already showed you the other side, the other one for this one. I might have already showed you that one. And again, I still need to make the 2 things here and the other thing that goes in the middle there. But that's how those are coming along. And I did already show you this. I've got that cut out a lot better now, sanded around. But again, just comparing cut out versus not cut out. So anyways, I'm going to keep going, and we'll come back when I got more progress to show. All right, so I decided to move on to the weapons here. And actually, I think those are reversed. I think I looked at some other drawings and stuff. I think that is the other way around. But anyways, so I saw some drawings of this and how it opens up, and inside of here there's like a machine gun on top and a missile launcher on the bottom, so when those open up it kind of reveals both weapons. So I decided to start working on those. First thing I did was I printed up just some basic shapes. So I sketched out and I printed up just those basic shapes like this, knowing I wanted it to open up somehow. And so I just traced those two shapes on a piece of paper, and I basically just traced them closed and then traced the one with it open, and then figured out the length of the arms that needed to be there. And then I reprinted those with some connecting arms. Reprinted them with the holes already drilled in there so that it would work instead of trying to locate and drill the holes myself. And so what I have now, here's one of the pieces, or two of the pieces that go together like that, and those are the holes for the connecting arms, and so that can move. And then here we have that with those arms in place. So there's closed and there's open. Here's the other side. So there's closed and open. Let me get these parts fitted better, cleaned up, sanded and fitted better, and filled and smoothed and operating properly, and we'll come back and show you what that looks like when it's all back together. Alright, so I have got a lot of stuff in the way, but here is that one done, and I'm really pleased with how that opens and closes. I still need to put a gun barrel in there and a missile down there, but that I am very happy with. It needs some filling and sanding. There's a few voids and stuff, so it needs some filling and sanding. Those pins are held in just with a little dot of CA and then sanded back smooth. Again, I'll put some more filler on there and sand that back smooth again, but that is working very nice. Now if we look at the linkages, that is one of the linkages, and after I printed it I ran a drill bit through the end so that the little the steel pin can go in there, and I was kind of thinking that the end of that might be a little bit too weak, and I'm afraid that might break and pull out. So to fix that, I wrapped some carbon fiber strands around it, and it's basically just this stuff. This is just carbon fiber tow, and basically what you do is you just hold it on there. Just hold it on there like that. Put a little drop of thin CA on it, and then let that kind of cure and set up. And typically what I do, when I put the drop of CA on it, I'll use like a cotton swab here and just kind of press it in and smooth it out. And for some reason, cotton on CA will kind of kick it off a little quicker than normal. So when you're doing that, it'll kind of set it. And then once that's down, you just pull it tight, wrap it around, and cut it off, and just apply more CA to it. And that will make this way more than strong enough. That's probably overkill now. Hopefully that'll never break. But so I did that to both of them when I put it in there. And here's some of those other parts and how they just kind of fit together. Obviously this doesn't have the linkages in there yet, but yeah, you get the idea. So I just got to, and of course little caps here hold the pins in on those sides. And I also just recently printed this piece. This still needs sanded and smoothed and detailed. But this, let me bring this out. I kind of roughly, that's kind of close, roughly assembled these pieces. And this will set in here somewhere like that. And that's going to hold those weapons in place. And, but of course that'll need more work. That still needs to get cut off. And there's still a few details that go up here. There's, if we take a look at the what I'm using, there's like a lump in there with 3 holes in it and 2 little pointy things sticking off. So for that one part, I 3D printed that piece with some holes in it, but at that scale it was kind of hard getting the holes to look nice. I was losing the edges were chipping away, so I drilled them oversized and just put in some aluminum tubing, and which is right here. Just cut off pieces of aluminum tubing and CA'd those in place. You can see a little bit of remnants from some filler. I still need a little bit more filler around the base. Obviously I just glued it to the stick so I can hold it better. So a little bit of filler and sanding that smooth. And what I will do, this was actually kind of a pain in the butt to make, drilling those holes and everything and sanding it all to shape. Doesn't look like it, but yeah, that was kind of a pain. So what I will do is, once I get this looking the way I'd like it, I will make a silicone mold and cast it in resin. Still needs a little bit more sanding and smoothing and stuff, but it's almost there. So I'll make a silicone mold of that. And also the little pointy pieces here. I need to look at some better reference photos, but I will probably just make one. I'll probably just turn it down on a lathe or something and make one, and then make a silicone resin mold of that. And so I don't have to make 8 of them, because you know, 4 on this one and 4 on the other one, so I don't want to have to make 8 from scratch. So I'll make one and make a mold of it. And this is pretty much, I pretty much have all the parts. It's a lot of, well, I still need to make mufflers and exhaust pipes that go in both of those. The Gatling guns, let me just show you the parts that I have for those. Okay, for this one, the gun here, I 3D printed a round hub and with 6 holes for barrels. And then I have these pieces that will go out like that. And those are the right size for some brass tubing. So I'll get some brass tubing in there to make those guns. And of course this still needs sanded smooth. And but you get the idea of how those guns will be made. Let's see, for this one, for the top, there's that piece right there. Is that? That's pretty much done. And for the light that's on there, here's the light. And again, that just needs a little bit more smoothing. And that goes on this piece. I'll put a metal pin in there so I can pivot. I just have to drill that out, put an LED in it, run some thin wires down here to connect to the battery box. I have not figured out yet what kind of lens I'm going to put on there. But there's a spotlight for this one. The spotlight for the other one still needs to be sanded smooth, but that's that one. That's going to go in a holder like that. And again, I can pivot up and down, and again, drill it out for an LED, put a light in there. Same thing with the lens. So 2 different styles of lamps, and that's just to match the 2 models there. Those were slightly different there. I'm going more by those 2 models than I am other reference photos, but and plus I don't want all the details to be exactly the same on the 2. Obviously they're 2 different styles, 2 different weapons. You know, I want some of the details to be slightly different. And the this piece on this one, that piece right there, that's what that one's looking like. This still needs to be sanded smooth. You can still see the lines from the 3D printing. And so that needs to be filled and sanded. All of those little vents were just cut out of scrap styrene like this, cut to length and glued in place. And yeah, that's pretty much it. The roof, actually this one, that one's going to go right there. And that one goes right there with this light like that. And the other roof is this one. So this one's going to get that light and that piece like that. So like I said, I pretty much have all the details and all the pieces. It's just a matter of filling and sanding and painting and putting it all together. So what I'll do, I'll keep working on these. Once I get it pretty much assembled with a coat of primer on it, I'll show you what they look like all together with primer, and then we'll do some the final paint, and hopefully not too much longer. I would like to get this thing done and move on to another project, but it's coming along. So give me a few days and we'll take a look at what it looks like in a little bit. All right, so here's the main body. I think it's ready for paint. I just masked off a little bit here. That tape will come off later. I also masked off here because I need to mount the piece that holds the weapons, which is this guy here. And I just 3D printed a couple of little vent things there. And so this will bond on back here. But I don't really want to do that till I get the tank treads fit so that's in and out properly. I think if it's too far forward, the weapons will hit up here. So I'm kind of waiting on that. But this was just a 3D printed piece I put on here and just filled in around with filler, sanded it smooth. And so it's all primered up and ready for paint. And you can see the light mount. And the light itself, since we're talking about weapons, so this is one of the weapons. It still needs a little bit of filler, so it still needs a bit of work, but that does open up, and it's got the gun barrel and top, and down here will be a rocket. So a rocket launcher goes in there. So I've got just made out of brass and some styrene. That'll set in there. The inside of this will be painted flat black, and that'll be painted missile color. I don't know. Haven't decided that yet, but that'll set in there. I actually made a mold of this so I could make a couple of resin castings of it. So I got a couple of resin castings. I'll use those. And the bottom is kind of sanded flat because I needed to make room for that to sit in there and still be able to close all the way. And of course this just goes in like that. And that then sets in there like that. And of course I'll have some exhaust pipes coming out the back. I still have to figure that out as well. So I think the exhaust pipes are the only thing I haven't really made yet. Let's see, the wheels, there's one half, the other half looks just like it. And again, those were resin castings. That's a resin casting. And there's the mold that I made to make those pieces. And of course it's all primered and ready to go. Notice the wheels are different. If you look at how they used to look, the center wheel there, just to make it look more like the little figures that I have, I basically just cut those out, and I cut a circle of styrene, drilled some holes in it to put some little bolts in there, just to make it look more like the model figures. So this is ready for paint. After everything's painted, I'll then put all the wheels in place. But that goes kind of like that. Also, I'm still working on filling in the gap here. See, that's where the little plastic wheel was. And I'm just putting styrene in the back side and then putting a few strips of styrene in to build up. And I'll probably just paint that flat black. Probably not going to paint the entire tread. whatever kind of plastic that is. I don't think paint will stick to it very well, so I'll probably just paint that flat black and try to match that as best as I can. But there's that piece and the light. Here is the light assembly, and I'm actually really pleased. There's an LED in there. I'm actually really pleased with that piece there. That's actually a 440 bolt. I think it was a 440, some kind of a small 440 Allen head bolt. And I just drilled it out and cut the head off to make like a little coupler piece for the wire that's like headphone wire with small little wires in there. And yeah, I scratched it. I got to fix that. But this mounts in here like so. And so that'll be able to tip up and down. And this will come through. I'll drill a hole right there. That'll go into that hole there. I'll put another little connector coupler on it, little 440 Allen head bolt drilled out again to put in there. And that goes all the way through. I drilled a hole back in there. That'll come down to the original battery pack, and I have a little switch as it was before. And I made a lens. The lens was made from, it's like the little disposable things, like if you have contact lenses. Some contact lenses come in like plastic heat-formed packs. So I just cut a circle out of that to fit inside of there. It's not perfectly straight right there, but you get the idea. And that'll be the lens for the light. And that's pretty much it. Just a little bit of touch-up, a little bit of sanding, and figure out the exact placement of the weapons and make some exhaust pipes and mufflers, a couple of antennas, and paint. And this one will be done, and I'll be able to move on to the other one. So give me a few minutes and we'll come back and see what it looks like all painted up. There's one of the side skirts, and I've got that piece glued on top. I still need to drill holes in the corners here for those little peggy things sticking up. Not really sure what those are for, but those get glued into each corner. And then I'll do the wheels like I did the other one. All right, so the second one is almost done. I've got the two sides here that are done and ready to go. This one, actually I need to put the switch back in for the spotlight. That's pretty easy, straightforward. I've got the weapons mounted. I've got the exhaust pipes and mufflers mounted. I need to cover up and hide that area down there. Just a little piece of trim down there. He did want this one to be gray. And this is, actually it's the primer gray with about 3 or 4 coats of semi-gloss clear, which is what he wanted to go with. I still need to do a few extra little details. Those will be painted silver. That'll get painted flat black. Probably do a little bit of a wash in black in the louvers here and the little vents back there. The exhaust pipes and mufflers are just made out of brass tubing and styrene pieces. And of course we have the Gatling Gun Weapons here. You saw the pieces for that earlier. And those are now attached, and of course these can rotate. Notice the hinge plane is offset. That way it would clear the side here a little bit so they can point forward a little bit. To get them to point any more forward, I would have had to have spaced those out a lot more, and that just wouldn't have looked right. It wouldn't have looked good. So by putting the hinge point tilted, when they're back, they are straight back. And then as you rotate it up, notice it swings out. It swings out a little bit, then it'll clear that corner of the side of the body until it hits it there. But if I wouldn't have angled it, I would only be able to move it straight up to about there, and that would be as far as it would go. But by tilting the hinge plane, I can move it a little further forward like that. And again, the Gatling gun is made out of brass tubing and some 3D printed parts with a plastic shaft, and the screw goes in, that's glued in. So these are permanently on, they won't come off, and it's just, there's just enough friction so you can put them where you want them and they stay there. So what I need to do now is attach the spotlight. Here's the spotlight. I've got the lens glued in. This is just like I did the spotlight on the other one. It's just a little bit of a different style, different shape. And this will go on. This will go on here. And I will either put like a wire pin in here or a little bolt or something. I haven't figured that out yet, but that's an easy problem to figure out. But that'll then be able to pivot up or down. And then again, the cable, the wire will go through here. I'll put another little fitting on it like that. And basically I'll just fish the wire through that hole, and that will then go through a hole right in there, and that'll go straight down and out. And then I could solder it to the wires. You can kind of see one there. I can solder it to the wires for the switch. Also, there'll be a resistor. The resistor, I think it's a 330 ohm resistor. I think it's what I grabbed. Something around there. Anywhere between, 275 to 450 ohms. Anywhere around there would be fine. It doesn't have to be exact, but anywhere around there is good enough. Just a couple of AA batteries in here to the LED is fine. And once I get it all wired up, these side pieces just get glued in place. Since I changed the wheels, I kind of lost the ability to screw it together, which is the way it originally was. Plus there's a screw hole here that I filled and covered in, and there's a screw hole here that I filled up. And there's also details that will go in here. Those were 632 screws. I need to open that hole up a little bit more. Those will go in there, and see if these holes are any bigger. Yeah, so those go in like that. I'll do a black wash on the inside, and the front bars, like that'll go in, that'll snap in like that. So I got those put in. I just painted those silver. But yeah, I just got a little bit more work left to do on here, and then these will be done. So let me get that together, and then I'll get both of them together, or both of them side by side, and get some photos and different views and angles of the gray one and the red one kind of side by side. So we'll get back to this here in just a second. Okay, here are the two finished side by side. And so I don't remember from last time I was doing video if I showed the red one finished, but here's the red one all finished. Of course, the spotlight there comes onto the front. Could be aimed up and down, and I got the antennas there. And of course the weapons can be pointed up and down, and the weapons open up. So a little missile launcher in there, and the gun barrel. So there's the red one, all done. Turn that back off. And then here's the gray one, all done. And again, it also has the spotlight there, and it can aim up and down. Got the antennas. The weapons can aim that far forward or straight back. I really enjoyed these builds. I learned a lot from these builds, some new building techniques, and also it gave me kind of a new insight on just looking at toys. Like if I'm, at a flea market or somewhere and I'm just looking at toys, to kind of look at them and think, okay, could they be turned into something much better? Could they be turned into something cooler? And so I'm going to be, on the lookout for modifying toys into something cool. Because these I'm rather proud of. I think they turned out pretty well. And what else? Oh, I made. He wanted a bullet to come out of the barrel with like a smoke effect. So these, that just kind of plugs in like that, and so it looks like the bullet coming out with the smoke effect. And I got to work on it locking in better. There we go. I think if I modify the little edge where the hook catches, it'll lock in better. So I got to fix that. But and I know the bullet is bigger than the barrel, but if you look at it from like kind of head on, it kind of gives that forced perspective, which I think is kind of cool. And the shape of this is based on a photo that he sent me, and what he was kind of looking for and what he wanted. And I actually made 2 of those. Here's the other one. One of them, the smoke effect's a little bit darker than the other. So, but yeah, there's those 2 bullets that'll latch in. But I think they turned out pretty well. Anyways, I'm going to just stop talking because I really don't know what else to say. So what I will do is just leave you with a montage of these in kind of different poses and different angles, so you can kind of see them from all the angles. And I'm going to leave it at that. So until next time, thanks for watching. All right, now one other thing I need to add here. Earlier I said that these were commissioned. They were commissioned to build. And this one actually is going to the person who commissioned the builds. But this one, the red one, is going on eBay. So if you like this red one, go to eBay and bid early and bid often. So I will just leave it at that and finish the video with just a bunch of different views and angles of the different ones. And as I said before, thanks for watching, and go to eBay and bid on this. So later.